So hi, everyone, again. So this is our time to answer the questions that you submitted last week. And I just want to let you know that we could not answer them all, and we'll get to as many as we can. There were a couple of questions that were specifically about Unity of Gaithersburg, so I'm going to answer them next week. So it's Ask the Minister, Part 2. So stay tuned for that. So how this will look this morning is I will tell you what the question is, and then as we just feel compelled, we'll answer. And my goal is for you, since you hear from me every week, it's just to primarily hear from these amazing beings. They're so privileged to have, and of course, you know I'll chime in.
Yes, I hope so.
I mean, I will, but yeah. But my hope is that first of all, I appreciate your input, and the questions were wonderful, and I just really would love for you just to hear the wisdom of these beautiful lights. So, all right. So the first question that we're going to delve into this morning is, why do we as humans rely on pain to guide us? Why do we as humans rely on pain to guide us? Isn't that a good question? I mean, they're all great. They're all great. So, okay. Okay.
Go for it, Robert.
That's a painful question. We don't have to rely on pain for guidance. If we are listening to our soul, to our deepest truth, then guidance will come, and if we follow it, why we can live with ease and with grace. But to the extent that we don't listen, that we tune out that inner voice, the universe uses whatever means it needs to unfold itself through us, and pain is the result of that unawareness and that resistance. So we don't need pain to guide us, but we can use pain when it arises to guide us. But ideally, the further along we go on our journey, hopefully the less we need to do that. You know, I used to say, God used to hit me over the head with a 4x4, and then it was a 2x4, then it was just a little stick, and now if I can wait for her to just tap me on the shoulder and I pay attention, I get the same results much easier.
So, I don't think pain guides us. I think pain is just pain. And I don't believe the pain is actually here to teach me anything. I believe when pain shows up, I have the choice to use it to grow, to use it to be better, to use it to be a blessing. And do we need pain? No. And in fact, if you want to wake up, you do what Robert says. You begin to hear what I call that inner knower, and you follow it. You can learn from other people's pain. You know, if a guy gets run over in front of you and you know getting hit by a car is painful, you don't need to go through that to learn that, right? Yeah. And I differ from Robert in this. I don't believe the universe would even give us pain as a way to learn. I think the universe or God or the one power and the one presence which we are is simply that which I use to support myself to be better each and every day. I don't believe, if there is a cosmic 2x4, it's not in God's hands, it's in mine.
All right. Well,
If I can,
okay.
just to be clear, I'm not arguing with that the 2x4, the pain, is a result of our resistance.
Yes.
It's not something God is doing to us or the universe is doing to us. But to the extent that we're holding on and resisting, to that extent we're going to get spiritual rope burn. Yep. You know, yep. So that's what the pain is about. So we can use the pain to learn from, But yeah, God doesn't give us pain. We invite pain unconsciously by not paying attention.
Yes.
Well, I tend to feel like we're on this trajectory of unfolding all that we are. We're on this journey. And I remember the first time I heard pushed by pain or pulled by a vision. And the one thing I know about pain is that it gets us out of our comfort zone. And it has us start to ask questions. And I remember in school when I was learning about embedded and deliberative theology. So our embedded theology, when we start to look at, so, the theology that we grew up with, that's cellular, for me, I was taught that you never question that. You just don't question. But by golly, when something bad happened to someone, I remember when I was 19, I had a college roommate that was accidentally shot by her boyfriend, and I knew both of them. There was no malice at all. It was just an accident, and it crushed me. I mean, I went to that place of asking questions. Why? How in the world could this happen to such a beautiful light? And so I think that's when we start to get curious, I think pain can sometimes stir us into being curious. And to look and to start asking questions, which then leads us to exploring and not being stuck in what we possibly have believed are concrete truths. So I think that pain can serve us on our journey in that way. So, okay. All right, so the next question is discerning awareness and consciousness different? Is discerning awareness and consciousness different?
You go first.
Okay, so this word consciousness is something that I've been curious about for quite a long time. And I used to think there was absolute consciousness, and that was part of the divine somehow, and then a relative consciousness. I now believe that, and I agree with the scientists, that consciousness can be cleanly defined as awareness plus arousal. Awareness plus arousal. The awareness is simply what you are aware of. And you can be aware of external things and the internal things of your life. And then the arousal part is that part that allows you to take action on that which you are aware of. And of course, action is optional. And so I equate consciousness with awareness. And then we have, I like to think of the three of the 12 powers as kind of an evaluation machine that allows for discerning or discernment. And so the principle of understanding is our ability to know. Wisdom or judgment is our ability to evaluate. And will is our ability to choose. And so I think from the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed, we are discerning. We're discerning what we want to have at breakfast, what we want to wear, what route we're going to take. We are judging machines, but it's nicer to say discerning machines. And so we're always taking what we're knowing, we're comparing and contrasting it, evaluation, to make choices. So discerning is what we do with our awareness.
Yeah, my response would be similar to that. First of all, it depends on the author, the teacher, the system you're in, because different people use those words synonymously and some use them very differently. Fillmore, I think, tended to go back and forth and to use them the same. To me, or the way I use it, awareness is primary. You know, in the Genesis where it says God said, let there be light, light is symbolic of awareness, conscious awareness. So awareness is a given. Consciousness is when a particular being or entity is aware of something. And then discernment is what is done with that awareness. So somewhat of a metaphor, an imperfect metaphor, but a metaphor would be like if we have a cell phone, awareness is like the signal. Consciousness is like the voice inside the cell phone. And discernment is how we interpret that voice inside the cell phone. So that's somewhat of a metaphor that I tend to use.
Good metaphor.
Absolutely. When I think of awareness, I think awareness is, and I think that we have awareness at varying levels. So if you're sitting here right now, you might be aware of my voice. And if my voice stops, you might be aware of someone walking in the door. Or you might be aware, then your awareness might shift to, gosh, it's hot in here, or it's cold in here. You know, so we're awareness beings. And I do think that in terms of a spiritual awareness is when, you know, I think that we can be aware and we put a lot of our awareness out here. And I think spiritual awareness is when we turn our attention and our awareness inwardly. And I'm a big fan of discernment. And if you know, I used to facilitate a discernment process as a spiritual process. You know, asking the question, what is mine to do? So I think according to my level of awareness, my internal awareness, my ability to, and where I am in consciousness, you know, it opens the way for me to have awareness of my wisdom, if I'm making sense. But I know the more I deepen in consciousness, in my awareness of the truth of what I am, when my inner knower expresses, I'm more available to listen. I'm more available to go, oh, okay. I'm going to take that step even though I might be afraid. You know, so I love this question because it really had me think, you know, the difference between awareness, where my awareness is out here, and where I turn my awareness inwardly, what is available for me in terms of my ability to discern and deepen my level of consciousness. So,
I would add to that is that we go in for that so that, or I do, so I'm grounded in that. So my awareness is from that nature rather than from simple personality.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that comes back to the beautiful song that was sung about being the witness.
Yes.
And it's like our level of identification. So if I'm the witness, then I can identify something, but I'm not attached to it.
That's right.
I'm not embedded in it. So I can be in the world, but not of it. And anyway.
And I think one of our most powerful teachings is the concept that self-awareness gives rise to self-knowledge. When I do that from a purely human standpoint, that might lead to self-condemnation. However, when we're using our self-awareness to arrive at self-knowledge, whatever knowledge we have of ourselves is then in a vast field of acceptance. And then we don't get into what Robert was wisely talking about earlier. Then I don't get into resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk a lot more about that. That's one of the problems is that any one of these questions is worthy of a 30-minute
Absolutely. It's
sermon and
very
then some,
multi-layered.
yeah.
So,
So you're all set for about a month.
we're all set. So, you know, there is a self-awareness class at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Just saying. The third question, how do I create from the infinite field of possibility? How do I create from the infinite field of possibility?
I'll jump on that.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. So you cannot not
Create.
create from infinite potential. We're always manifesting from that. So what I read into this is, how do I consciously create from the infinite field of potential? And many of you have heard one of my favorite sayings. That statement of the infinite field of potentiality is too vague. And what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness.
Okay, that is so bad.
Yes. Yeah. This is what metaphysics is all about, actually, and it's my passion. And most of us forget that this infinite field of potential, nothing can be manifested from it until you know what it's made up of and realize you have to limit it in some way in order to get something in the relative world. And there's a law for that. It's called the law of expression. Everything moves from the unformed to the formed, from the infinite to the specific, is the way I like to say it, from the absolute to the relative. And so when we can know the principles, when we can know the 12 powers, and we can know just a few laws of mind, we can start manifesting, demonstrating consciously. That's kind of it in a thumbnail.
I guess for me the question is not so much how or what, but why. Why do I want to create what I want to create? Where am I coming from, so to speak, when I desire to create something? So often we want to create something because we think it's going to make us happy. And so we can get caught up into a spiritual materialism of, I want to create this and I want to create that, thinking that the things are going to make us happy. I believe that manifestation is a byproduct of who we are. It's not something we need to worry about as such. If I can be clear on who I am and what I want, then the rest will take care of itself. So I tend to focus more on, when I hear that question, is what's your motivation behind wanting to create? What's the premise that you're coming from? So if I want to create, we talked about creating a soulmate. I mean, that's
That was
great.
another question. How do I create my soulmate?
How do I create my
So I figured
soulmate?
it would be
And
answered in this.
it's a legitimate question, but why is it you want to create that soulmate? Okay? What is that soulmate going to give you that you think you don't already have? So, am I creating from a sense of lack, or am I creating out of a sense of fullness and joy that I will attract into my life whatever I need when my consciousness is aligned with my deepest truth?
Yeah, what I wrote is become self-aware. You know, that to me is, because we're always creating. And it's all about, again, about being conscious of what we're creating. And what if we could let go of our attachment of creating a thing and instead focus on I call it creating my consciousness, you know, being self-aware. What if that was the greatest creation? You know, for us to walk in life aware, present, conscious, so that we can consciously choose. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because again, we tend to give power to the external. That's going to fill my cup. That's going to make me feel worthy and valuable and capable. And we already are lovable, valuable, capable. What if we could claim that, know that, and then open our hearts? So, yeah. All right, we're moving along. Okay, so how do you understand the whole Bible? It's so complex. Little shift. How do you understand the whole Bible? It's so complex. I know you guys are looking at me.
Well, you're speaking. You're the one doing the talking.
You guys want to take a stab at it?
Well, first of all, I think it's helpful to recognize that the Bible is not a single book. You can think of the Bible as a library of several books. And so the best way to approach it is to understand the different types of books that are in the Bible. Some of it is history, some of it is poetry, some of it is wisdom, some of it is fantasy, mythology, etc., etc. So I think it's a mistake to talk about the Bible and to look at which specific books in the Bible we're talking about and to start with that.
Okay, I'll answer that
We're gonna
question.
let you go.
I think
Well-
she's ready to go.
The whole Bible. I had a breakthrough in ministerial school, and I know you know this, those of you that are here and my congregants, with E.J. Niles, when she taught the consciousness of the writers. It was like this light bulb just went on, because when we started to look at moving through the Bible, looking at the different writers, and using spiral dynamics, which we don't have time to go into, but look it up. Your head will go, but
No, it'll go.
woo! Looking at the writer's consciousness from that perspective, you could tell why they wrote what they wrote. Because every writer had an agenda. And so really, the Bible as a whole is a story of the evolution of a people. Some people say it's a story of the evolution of our consciousness. Some people say it's the evolution of our view of God. I think it's just a great resource for some really fun stories to go deeper. We talk about it in Unity as we use it as allegory, meaning it just paints a picture that has another meaning, a deeper meaning. We don't take the Bible literally here in Unity. We use it, to me, my favorite interpretation is the Maieutic interpretation, where you read a story, like, for instance, the Good Samaritan, the Prodigal Son, and break it down and look at the characters. Who am I? When am I the person that walks past someone laying in the road? Maybe not literally, but who am I that turns away? Who am I? When is it that I stop and I open my heart and serve someone? You see, so to me, the Bible came alive in a different way from my Southern Baptist upbringing when I was able to read a story and start to kind of look at, first of all, I wonder who wrote this, what was going on during the time, what was the agenda of the writer. That's always just really fun. And then what can this evoke in me about my journey and who I am in the world? So that's how we approach the Bible.
So I agree with all of that, and it is complex because it is multiple books, and all of the books are written in the context of Judaism, and we've got to remember that, both the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures. It's funny how we often forget that Jesus was a Jew and the disciples were Jews. And I have made a movement in my lifetime from the Bible being the Word of God and sacred and infallible to now I simply find it as interesting literature. And because so much of the theology of our childhood is based on that book, I find it creates, a person's dependence on it creates an undertow that inhibits a person understanding unity's metaphysics. Because unity metaphysics is based on a metaphysical interpretation of the scriptures and not literal. And so I'm no longer really a great fan of the Bible. I celebrate people like you who find it wonderful. I think we should celebrate all scriptures that people find sacred. It's not a very good resource on how to do relationship, that's for sure. And it's not a very good book that promotes peace when you come right down and just look at it coldly in a way. And so I find myself in this position where I have moved away from the Bible rather than embracing it and using it actively.
And when you said wonderful, I have shifted, as you know, those of you that, I don't use it as much as I used to, because I feel like there is an energy around the Bible that generates separateness. And so, I do like to use it sometimes in a talk to just, land just an example, because some of the stories, to me, I find intriguing. But in terms of using it, I do not use it every week. It's not.
I forgot what I was going to say. The Bible is a. It's helpful to see it if it's a resource rather than a source. Okay, it's a resource for understanding truth. And for me, the teachings of Jesus are the part of the Bible that I refer to almost exclusively. And there's almost an infinite number of levels of understanding those teachings. They can be understood at a very superficial level or at a very, very deep level. And so there again, it's not so much the Bible is an object out there as it is in a way kind of a mirror of who and what we are as we study it. So.
All right, I know we're getting close to time. Can we do a quick answer to what brings us the most joy? I mean, I know we could probably do, but
I could do that real quick.
I can do that real quick. Can you do that real quick? What brings you the most joy? That was the next question.
Yes, so I decided in 1991 my purpose in life was to help people help themselves get happier. And I don't get to decide what you think is happier. And I am in my sweetest, joyful spot when I'm serving that function. How can I help you to be the best you can be? How can I help you to be happier and more joyful?
I'd say for me it's similar to that. When I'm having spiritual awakenings and I'm a catalyst for other people's spiritual awakenings, that brings me a profound joy.
I love that too. I love teaching. I love music. I think music has the power to touch souls in ways that the spoken word cannot. And the beauty of nature brings me tremendous joy. So combine all those, oh wow, I'd be levitating.
Put them in a blender.
All right, put them in a blender. Thank you for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And let's close with an affirmation, if we would. I am open to learn, grow, and deepen my understanding an expression of my divine nature. I will attend an SCE class this week to do just that.
Ah, you tricked.
Bless you.
Yeah. Thank you.